Now let's see if we can build this thing together. It will be a 5900X Ryzen Raptorium CPU miner. So I managed to get all the parts, and now it's time to put it together and hopefully get it to work. So I will start with putting the motherboard, see if I can get the motherboard and the CPU and the cooler together. I have been a little bit concerned. I got first this cooler, but I'm not 100% sure when mining if it's gonna be enough. So I've actually ordered a much bigger cooler, and I think it will be safer to just go with the big cooler instead of the small AMD cooler. I will just save it for another miner in the future, and like maybe with a smaller CPU, and then I can build that together. But for now I will start with trying to assemble all the parts, see how that goes. So here we have the motherboard. And some bits and pieces for it. Here we have the motherboard out of its bag, and now let's see if we can start mounting things together. This will be interesting. So let's unpack the cooler to see how that should be mounted. It's a Dark Rock Pro 4. So let's see. Looks like I'm gonna need 2 hands for this. I'll be right back. Now, looking at the cooler here and looking at the instruction, it looks like I'm going to need to have a quite long screwdriver to actually be able to mount the cooler on the motherboard. So I will find one, and then I will get back to building. So I got the tool for the job now. As I understand, they used to be included in the cooler, but they are not included anymore. So I was lucky to get one from a friend, and let's see if we can put it together. According to the instructions, I have to change the brackets for the cooler ones. So I will unscrew the screws and put on some new brackets that follows with the cooler. So new brackets and some screws to mount it together. So we have the cooler brackets in place, and time to get the processor in. And there is the little mark for the CPU. So rise up that. There is a small that you can, oh, you can hardly see. Let's see if the camera can zoom in and find it. There's a small dot on that corner, and that dot should then be, if everything is correct, that should be on that side. So let's see. we can get in the, so we slide it in, wiggle wiggle a little, and it looks like it worked. It's there. So processor in place, time to put the cooler. And I guess this has to be removed, or I don't think the processor would like it otherwise. But that looks nice and clean. That is nice and clean. We need some thermal paste, and this is the thermal paste that comes with the cooler, and we will put some on. Let's see. Some thermal paste. So nice and gooey as there. And let's see if we can mount the cooler on here. This way or this way? It doesn't say. How should it be mounted? This way or this way? It doesn't say. I suspect that it should be this way, and I am seeing something that has to be done before I put on this big cooler, because that big cooler will block the RAM. So I have to put in the RAM, or I will have a lot of difficulty putting actually in the memory. So RAM is nothing special, just the standard 2 8GB sticks, CL16, 3200 MHz memory. Should work fine. And all motherboards are different, but there should be 2 slots that are the first 2 slots. And here it says on the motherboard that it is this one and this one who the first RAM should be put in. So let's do that. And all memory has a little hole that is equal to the one on the slot. So you just make sure it's in the right way. And press it firmly in and make sure it's all the way in. It has snapped and locked in place. And that looks good. And then we do the next one. And as you can see, not that way, the other way. This would be a lot easier if I was using 2 hands. But as you can see, Now the RAM is firmly in place. Time to actually mount the heatsink. Now is when we really need that screwdriver, and this is the bracket, and here we have the screws that we need. So this should go in there. And now is when we really need the screwdriver. And not to lose the screws. This was actually a tricky part. Ooh, this was tricky. This was tricky, and I can actually now see I have made a mistake. I think at least I made a mistake. Let's see. Because the fan connector is on this side. And tighten them. There. To the bottom. And we have our heatsink mounted. Now we have to put in the second fan. That goes in here. I think maybe it's in this way, so we can connect them together. So, and now even more things to mount together. Let's try with the shorter one. There, and then one on the other side. So, and that holds it in place. And now we have to look here on the motherboard. CPU fan. So that looks to me like we put that one in there. And then the two from the two CPU fans. There. Looks like we are slowly getting somewhere in this build. So we have put CPU fan, and the RAM. They are mounted on the motherboard. So now I think it's time to put the actual motherboard in the frame. And that is going to take some adjustments on where to actually put these ones for the motherboard. So I understand mounted here. Let's have a look. So, motherboard is mounted on the frame, processor installed. So, time to see if I can connect the power supply and hard drive, and we will see. Connectors. Oh, I think this will come in handy. So, guess I have to unpack this. So, the power supply is supposed to be mounted like that, so I will fasten it in place. So, the power supply is in place. Small 550 watt power supply should be enough. Motherboard power. CPU power. And the CPU power should go down here. And the motherboard. Let's connect the motherboard power. So, CPU power and motherboard power is connected, and it's time to install the hard drive. It's supposed to be installed on this one. Let's see. I just have a cheap 240 gigabyte SSD drive. So it's time to connect hard drive. It's there, connected to the SATA port, and the power. And it looks I'm gonna need 2 hands. Be right back. So, cables in place. Let's see. We need a video card. I have a cheap Nvidia 1030 that we will use. So I will put that in. So now we have the video card in place. So let's see if we can find out the other small bits and pieces. So it's time to connect the power button that came with the frame, and it's supposed to go here. So I will connect it and we see. So now everything should be connected. Video card is in, memory is in, CPU, cooler, fan. That looks a little bit, but it's, yeah, should be okay. Power supply. So let's see. Power on. Oh, it's power on. Will I get anything on the monitor? But power supply is on, fan is on. Oh, and it looks like we have a booting system. So I will see if we can install Windows. As I heard that the Hive OS is supposed to be better, but I know too little about it, so I will have to start with Windows. So Windows is installed, system looks like it's running fine. I have a wireless network card that I have to install, and then I can update Windows and connect to the internet. But other than that, we seem to be ready with the build. Now I will make another video on setting up the actual miner and all those things, but I think this video will be long enough. The two things that I think was the hardest to do was to get the motherboard to fit correctly on the frame and installing the CPU and cooler. That was the really hard part. Otherwise the other parts were just to more or less connect them. But the CPU fan, and actually getting the frame together, that was the hard things to do. So until next video, have a good time, and please, any suggestion on coin to mine or systems to build or any advice or any comments, please write them, and remember to subscribe and hit that thumbs up. Thank you, and see you in the next video.